Okay, I can go on and on and on about anything, and I can go on and on and on about the fact that we're rich in this world, whether we feel like it or not. And Paul's words to Timothy are as applicable to us and valuable to us as they were to the folks in Ephesus when Paul penned this letter in, I don't know, about 65 or 6 AD. We're back at 1 Timothy 6:17. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth. Now, this often happens. I see it happening in my life. When my financial life is going well, I don't it doesn't require the kind of faith and trust as when my financial life is not going so well. Does that make any sense? And this is just me, but one of my anxiety triggers is the message that you're not going to have enough. I can tell you all about why I think it's there. It doesn't really matter, because the other side of that message is when you have enough, you're safe. Well, in a way, that's kind of what Paul was writing about. Don't be rich. Don't be arrogant. It doesn't say don't be rich. It says don't be arrogant or put your hope in wealth. And I struggle with this, that sometimes I do put my hope in my wealth. It's like if my bank account is good and doing well, if my retirement fund is good and doing well, that gives me peace. And in a way, my hope is there. I hope I'll have enough. Phew. So the problem with that is, and he goes on to say it, which is so uncertain. Yeah, we all know that. If you haven't picked that up in the last 24 or so months, then I'm telling you, they prove to us that this thing about wealth is very uncertain. Okay, so if we're not gonna put our hope in our bank account, in our wealth, and Paul was talking. Again, I'm sorry to come back to this, but I need to. He wasn't talking about currency, because currency was not an issue back then, okay? But he was talking about physical, material wealth. So that connects with our culture. Our culture is eaten up with a desire for material wealth. And so if my hope, it doesn't make sense to put my hope in this material wealth because it's so uncertain. So what do I do then? Well, he goes on. But to put their hope in God. Sounds like a Sunday school answer. You know that old joke, right? Sunday school teacher says, okay, it's gray and brownish. It has a big bushy tail. It lives up in a nest in trees. It collects nuts. What am I talking about? Nobody would answer, right? Till finally, Billy raises his hand and says, well, I know it's a squirrel, but I think I'm probably going to say Jesus. Well, sometimes I'm guilty of giving Sunday school answers. It may sound at first like a Sunday school answer, but it's not. This is one in my life. This is one of the supreme challenges, to put my hope in God. I think for me, I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, putting my hope in God means I can't control this. So if you hope for anything, you might feel like, you might initially think, well, I can make that happen. No, you can't. The best you can do is do things that might influence it toward an outcome. But you don't have any control. There's too many other outside forces. Well, okay, putting my hope in God, basically, if I put my hope in God, when I put my hope in God, I can't remain in control. And one of most people, certainly my first instinctive reactions to life in general is I want, when I can control it, I can feel more safe. Well, here's the problem. I can't control it. So I'm more or less constantly in a state of anxiety, insecurity. So I have to put my hope. Now that's an interesting concept. Paul says, but put their hope in God. You see, I can only tell you from my experience, my hope does not go to God naturally. It has to be put there. And I'm in a season of life right now with issues that aren't important to anybody but me, where daily I'm having to put my hope in God, because there are things I have no control over. I cannot control the outcomes that I want to see. So what do? Well, you're going to find something to put your hope in. I'm going back to the idea that culturally, we kind of have a, the terminology is we have enculturated ourselves. The culture has educated us that material wealth gives you security. And I can't get around the fact that, yeah, it kind of does. If I had nothing in my retirement account, that would be a bad deal. Although, here's something for me. I don't know if it's for you, but one good thing for me is I have 3 kids and their spouses and families that will not let us become destitute. They already take care of us. So, okay, where's my hope? It's not in material wealth. In this scenario, it's in my kids and their material wealth. It's so hard. In our world, it is so hard to put our hope in God, because the whole wave set of our culture and the current of our culture is your security is going to come from your material wealth. So work really hard to get more. However much you have is not enough. Get more. Against that, Paul says, let's reset reality, because your wealth is incredibly uncertain. I don't care how much more you can acquire. It can all go away very quickly. So, because of that, put your hope in God. It's a daily chore for me. And when I say chore, I mean it requires effort. Here's another thing. He goes on to say, put your hope in God, who richly provides us with everything. Okay, now, there are levels of provision. There's provision that's not quite enough, Well, I suppose there's even no provision. There are levels of adequate provision. And then there are these rich provisions. You know what I'm talking about. When you get more than you need. If God richly provides everything, the only thing I can get out of that is it's more than we need. Okay. Does it feel that way to you? Okay. A shameless confession. It doesn't feel that way to me sometimes. As a matter of fact, often. When it doesn't feel that way, does that mean it is not so? No. It just means I have this feeling. There's an emotion. There's a feeling. And if I'm not vigilant, that feeling will hijack my thinking. And then it's not just that I feel inadequately supported and provided for. If I don't think clearly about that, I will eventually begin to think I am not well provided for. And out of that, I begin to behave in a way that reflects I don't feel and I don't think I'm being provided for well, even when I am. Okay, may not be you. But he says, God richly provides us with everything. That's pretty cool. With some things, with the bare necessities. You see, everything is, to be honest with you, is both a relative and an absolute term. Here's how it's relative. There are billions, not millions, but billions of people who live at a poverty level in the world. And everything for them is basically food, shelter, clothing, physical safety. I mean, that's everything. Because that's their perspective. And then you have people in the West like you and me. Everything, that's a lot more. But why does God, just the idea that he richly provides everything, that's huge. But for me, that's a mind blower. And again, part of the reason is I don't always feel like I'm getting richly provided for with everything. But Paul goes on. God richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. There are a lot of folks, church folks, who some of them promote a theology and ideology. Others, that's all they've ever been taught, is the idea that enjoyment, God is not interested in your enjoyment. I mean, I do say this. I do say that God is way more interested in your holiness than your happiness. And I believe that to be true. But I also think that does not mean God doesn't give a rat's rip about your happiness. No. Paul says the reason God richly provides us with everything is for our enjoyment. Okay, well, and I've only got about 30 seconds, so I'm just going to say, there are times when God's rich provision comes and we don't pause to enjoy it. We just do it. We just use it. We just consume it and move right along. Well, okay, my time's up. Can you guess I'm going to come back this a little bit next time when we get together on So Care with Stevie Boy?